Just gonna tear some of these off here. Get this going. Dude, I think my mouse is like having connection issues. It's wireless and I keep feeling it like hiccuping. You know what I mean? All right. Okay. The Italian Cafe. This looks pretty nice. Okay, Rise is getting the community thing here. How are you guys doing, by the way? You guys having a good Thursday? Tomorrow's Friday, guys. Easy, how you doing? Glances left monitor. Huge, Jeremy. Huge. Tunisium, hi. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Would love some feedback here. All right. Right off the bat, pretty solid. Pretty solid. I think what's going on here that could use maybe like a little bit of attention. You got to be quick if you want to start with that previous post. Are you serious? Okay. All right, let's go. So the things I would probably work on, overall, this scene looks pretty good. It's pretty good. You've got nice like dirtiness on the surfaces to kind of just break up the wall. Signage is on point. I think it's the tables. Like if the tables were lighter, maybe the arch to this was a little bit lighter, you could probably be in a good spot. Let me see if I can just quickly do this. So if we go maybe something like that, and then let's turn the saturation down, and then we'll just do it to one table. So if you were to take one of these tables, right, and you just like lighten it up, okay? I'm like, come on, fingers. I think a lighter tabletop will like let the scene pop a little bit more. And I honestly, I think that's really it. I think if you did that here, I don't know if that would. Let me just, as a quick glance here, we'll lower the. I don't know, because everything right now is very similar. So if we could like kind of bring some stuff, pull some stuff out from the scene to pop a bit more, I think you'd be in a good spot. But let me just go to this post here again. And overall, the assets look pretty solid. The details are pretty good. Maybe some roughness variation. That's where I said it. Yeah. And some parallax or depth to the glass. If you're having a hard time making the glass have depth, just darken it up a little bit in its albedo, so that way it kind of pulls itself back a bit more. It looks like there's depth there, but I don't know. Man, this is solid. That sign's dope. The ground looks really good as well. Is this a lot of tools involved here? Personal project rendered on Unreal Engine. Scene is based on actual place in Italy. Very cool. Sticking to that reference. Oof. Ooh, look at that. Oh, yeah, this is nice. This is super nice. Nice puddle work as well. Very cool. Yeah. I think the stuff I pointed out would kick it up a little bit, but it's well executed. Maybe some motion. Get those plants moving around. Okay, so up next we've got... is it Seymour Samaru? I'm going to say that wrong. I can feel it. He said the thing. Got to get that emote, man. We got to move it over here. Hey, I'd love some feedback on my texturing. So texturing-wise, the variety is really nice. Just color and value differences. There's a lot of bolts going on there. For the most part, I would say the bolts are maybe a little busy, but I don't think I think they would be busy in the real version as well. That being said, I have not looked at an ejection seat before very closely. Ooh, Raggy, you say something spicy there. 22 points to give a new emote. I would try maybe like toning the bolts down, but keeping their information there in the normal and see how that looks. Other than that, the variety in material surfaces is really nice. Maybe the detail normals, if there's detail normals in here, then maybe they're not tiling enough. What is this in? This is just in Blender and Substance Painter Marvelous. All right. But I like the attention to detail and the amount of shapes that are on here. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Maybe if this was saturated a bit more. Right now, everything's a little too desaturated. Reminds me of like the games industry in like the early 2000s. We were really pushing for like desaturated, like realistic desaturation, you know? It's very Gears of War-esque. Because you can see the difference even just in that subtle shift. Get a lot more color pop, which just looks more interesting, I guess. It's pretty dirty on the top here, but also dirty on the side. You could maybe tone down the side dirtiness as well. I mean, I guess the person's leg is, their legs are there, but overall it's nice. Looks good. All right, Ode, what do we got going on here? Oh, it's like a library, right? Book club, yeah. It's great project collaboration with Tempest Studio. I was responsible for the environment creation and level design in UE4 and part of the lighting. Scott, how you doing, man? Good to see you, Pontus. Ooh. Always like stuff in motion. Just looks so... So there's some nice surfaces going on here. Some nice roughness. Things look maybe a little wet. Oh, that looks cool. I like the lighting. I know that you said you only were part of a little bit of the lighting. The variation, like you've got metal here and then carpet and fabric materials here is really cool. Just having the differences next to each other. I would say this is maybe panning too much or too quickly. This breakup here with two separate panels having different information on it is really nice. Just shows that imperfection. Yeah, the depth of field might make it look like a dollhouse in some scenarios. Yeah, you're talking about where you what is that term? Where you make it smaller. Man, why is that I can't, it's blanking for my brain. Tilt shift, yes, thank you. Yeah, where it ends up looking a little micro. Like you're getting that vibe here. So I think when you look at this top image, this area here does not really feel like it goes back in space, and it just feels like it's overly lit in there for not being lit, if that makes sense. As far as the scene goes, it looks pretty solid. When it comes to your roughness, I think that's where it's kind of suffering the most. Well, it's not bad, but it's like you're seeing surfaces implying that they're really wet or they're damp, when I don't think that's what's going on. And maybe it's just you're trying to get some variety in the roughness. The best way to get variety naturally is to bring in other types of materials like rubber to metal to plastics to wood materials. Like it's going to have that range. Overly lit takes out scotch. That's funny. Cool scene though. It's propped pretty well as well also. It's a lot of images. I mean, I know I scrolled up, but would be interesting to see, like it doesn't feel like this is on, if you know what I mean. What's up, Shooter? How you doing? Hey, thanks for that follow, by the way. So this actually doesn't look like it's on, and I would really like to see it like look like there's a light source inside that's kind of illuminating this colored glass. But yeah, there's some reactions for you, Mr. Wright. Oh, I just realized I was opening them. Okay, we're fine. We're fine. It's okay. Flickering lights are difficult to do because they usually look really intense. Sometimes a flickering light doesn't even have to actually flicker, but it can just drop in brightness just a little bit and then come back up. Whenever you want it to fully turn off, I would say keep that quite rare, and you're going to get a much more natural, kind of not intense look, but the same, like the overall vision you have will hold. I think with that said, it's really samey in its brightness. Let me see if I can. Yeah, see, everything's very, like, this should be quite bright, right? Like, you probably shouldn't even see the cage around that. So be something, maybe something like that, and then let's. Maybe, what is it, a screen? And really just kind of tone that back. And then when we paste this on top, you can see like get a little bit more pop. The shadows could probably be a little bit darker just so that you're getting the contrast in your scene. Not so much contrast in the materials. Like, for example, this pipe. Why am I getting this Windows sound? Why? This pipe, for example, seems a little dark in its albedo. So it's not really, it's difficult to see this being this dark when the rest of the scene is this bright, if that makes sense. I think that's blood on the wall. That seems really high for where it would splatter. And like it would happen there and then drip down. I expect that maybe to happen somewhere around here. Just because like that's a handle, right? This is like a really narrow door. What is this? Is that an elevator? What is that? Danger. It must be like power stuff in the back there. It would be nice to know or be able to look at this door and know what that means. Like what's behind it. Oh, right. Noah. Wow, you're right. There were a few. Okay. I'm going to keep moving. Okay, so we got Noah. Trying to create an environment asset pack worth buying. All environmental pieces have 5 LODs and 4 different theme texture sets made from substance. The architect walls are more support and environment buildings. Okay, so I mean, I guess the best way to sell this stuff, this type of stuff, is to actually construct something with it, right? So right now you're showing me all the pieces, but what I want to see is like how far I can take something like this, right? Because that'll show the real value and like how much I can utilize it. Like, what am I paying for, and how can I, like, how far can I get with what I paid for? The shapes are pretty basic. I mean, these, like, just to be super honest, I would say these shapes are like block out shapes before you actually go in and detail them overall. And that might be a product of the fact that I'm really far away. Maybe they actually look super good up close. But right now, like, I mean, I think they don't even need textures right now. They're more of like you should sell it as a block out kit for trying to figure out what you want to build. So knowing how far to take your details. Because like so you've got wall pieces, right? But I don't see any corner pieces. I don't see any like ways to solve making a inward shape. Like if you go, so if you've got, let's see, can I just draw over here? So you've got your wall pieces. I don't see anything that shows me like a corner. I don't see an inverted or like concave and convex corners to be able to do these types of buildings, if that makes, these shapes and buildings, if that makes sense. Right? So you don't have like you don't have all the pieces needed in order to actually make a building yet. Depending on like how these pieces fit together, which I'm assuming you're going to want corner pieces. I've seen it without corner pieces in general. That doesn't usually work. Yeah. Hopefully that was some good feedback. Beer, where you at? This is pretty interesting. Quite stylized. Almost looks like it's drawn. My last project finished it a couple of weeks ago. I'd appreciate some feedback. I think your ivy might be too dark. So like in the shadows, it's really, really dark. There's some outlining that you're doing on everything. And I think on your ivy, the outlining is just making it more noisy than actually showing the material itself. The direction you're taking, though, with all of this stuff is really interesting. This is just Blender, huh? You're drawing these lines with... This line work is super interesting on the leaves. Yeah, this is really cool. Now you can see how the ivy is on this one. It's very controlled, whereas yours, I mean, in this side, it's not too crazy. This one feels quite random. I want to say that they're starting down here, but one thing that I see a lot with ivy is it usually people will tend to, when they're first starting to make ivy for their assets, is they're building it coming from above, you know, and coming over the corner, because that's a really iconic kind of detail that you see is ivy going over the edge of something and then growing down. Where in reality, ivy usually is coming from somewhere, right? So like this planter here, for example, this is where all the ivy is growing, maybe. And in that case, then it would crawl up and then you would see it. So that the crawling over a wall would actually happen on this opposite side, because you have to remember that ivy has to come from somewhere. It can't just like grow over. If there's a planter on the other side of this, then it'll grow over, right? So sure. But it's much easier on the viewer if they can explain where things are coming from. The one more thing on this. I really like the direction that you took your materials in. I think what it could benefit from is actually gradients. So like while it looks like you have all of your lines kind of drawn in, if there's that base color had a gradient in it, you can see there's a gradient in here. If there was a gradient either from the bottom to the top or from the top to the bottom, I think that would really that'd be really, really nice. All right. IBM. Oh man. I remember IBM. So I would love to get some overall criticism. Much appreciated. Okay, so there's a lot of details here that are modeled that I would suggest like you just put in the texture, like all these details here. It's a lot of geometry that you're paying for that you don't need to. Like you can just put this in a normal map, right? Having the little logo here on a single poly though, I think that's a great idea. Mainly because you can maintain the resolution on these types of details. Same with the screen, right? The screen's quite high res. I don't know if it needs that extra geo here to give it the curve, just because it's so subtle. It's I would say as well, and it might just be the angle, but where these are cut feels uneven, I think. Yeah, so there's that. I'm not sure what's going on here. I think this is for 3.5 floppy. You know, the big floppy disks before they became the smaller ones. And if that's the case, you need the little switch thing that locks it. See, there's a lot of details you're modeling in here. You don't need to. Like while you put all that detail in here that you're not seeing. I mean, that looks like it should be a texture, right? You're not seeing that detail, but then you are seeing the edges being counted here. So it's more about making sure that you're putting the geometry where it will benefit you the most when it comes to the overall shape and silhouette at a distance, right? Texture-wise, it's not too bad. There's a lot of wait, what? There's a lot of wasted space up here. I'm not sure if it's because you wanted to have the keyboard and all of the things separate. That's really interesting, because I think you could probably pack these all together. Maybe you have the keyboard on its own, but that keyboard could be so much higher res if you just utilize all of this space. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's really interesting that you chose that route. And you're only showing albedos, so I'm assuming there's just like a generic roughness on top of this. Let me see if there's a, no, that's all I can see. Okay. So the screen, I think where it's lacking is there's, you've got polycount usage in strange spots where it could just be normal maps. Your UV space is not being utilized enough. You should use as much of your UV space as possible. The keyboard, I would say, is probably pretty high high priority for keeping the resolution high. So that I could see this being its own texture sheet along with the wire here and its little plug piece. But then the rest should be on just another set altogether. And then it's like I was saying with your roughness, I'm not really feeling like this is a screen other than my brain goes, oh yeah, that's a screen. Yeah, so keep that stuff in mind. The noise of the normal information that's here, watch out for that. It's very, very busy. If you look at it really closely in real life, you're going to notice that it's the details are smaller, but they're not as strong in the normal. Yeah, and zero's totally right. Let me see if I can, where's that render at? This one. So the green pixels in this screen, whoops. They need that glow, you know? Let me see if I can do this really quick here. Thing is where it gets brighter, it almost needs to get more white, if that makes sense. That's not going to do it. Anyways, I know what you're saying, Zero. The text needs to have that glow. It needs to feel like the pixels are on the screen are blowing out a little bit, almost like it's a CRT, right? So, but yeah, overall pretty cool. It's lacking in some points that I mentioned earlier. And also don't be afraid to bevel. Like the bevel you have here, the way that terminates, you got to watch out for that. I'm just going to do this because so if you have, oops, what's the undo for this? Control-Shift-6, that's an exercise. There we go. All right. So you have it going to a point like so. And then you have it going to another point and then breaking into, what is it? 4 points for another curve. You could just connect like 1, 2, 3, 4. You could just connect these and then just call it good. You don't need this extra edge here to just add more vertices. You could just connect all of those together. Like there's that extra loop there. And then it terminates down here. Like this could, that whole edge in here should go away. This thing here. And this one too. You don't need those, I don't think. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing something, but that's strangely modeled. Is it Cairo? Cairo's got a material steady. Where are we at here? Snow with some blood and some shotgun shells in it. So right off the bat, scale looks pretty good. Scale looks pretty good with the shotgun shells to the tire tread marks. The blood looks like it's actually soaking in pretty well. Because when blood hits snow, you know, it can kind of becomes a little bit brighter. This is you, Cairo, yeah. So you're like, thanks for the critique. Just want to ask how I can improve material presentation, and also, is it worth it including materials in your portfolio when stuff that would normally be done with decals, meshes, and debris? You mean like the little shotgun shells and such? I mean, in reality, you're making this material because it looks good on your portfolio, right? In production, you probably wouldn't put the shotgun shells in it. You probably wouldn't put the blood in it, because then if they tiled that all over the map, it's not going to... Same with the tracks as well. That stuff's going to be everywhere. So you know what I mean? So you just want the snow and maybe like the little twigs and stuff in it, and maybe some footsteps. So you're thinking more generic because you're gonna this song. Everything. All right. So like these are probably gonna be done with splines, the tire marks. The shells are probably gonna be placed with decals and maybe some custom footprints added. And then some the blood will be a decal as well. The bear paw prints, that's all story. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. The thing that's sticking out to me the most out of the presentation of this is the roughness of the snow. It looks like maybe it started to melt on a sunny day, and then at night it froze again. Which, while I can rationalize that, I don't think that's what you're going for. So, like, you really gotta diffuse that the roughness and make it that powdery look that everyone's looking for, you know? I like this presentation. I don't think you need the lines here, maybe cutting out that, like all past the sphere. I think you'd be all right. Also, when you do this, sometimes it is worth mentioning what map is what. So like below, just say like left to right, normal, albedo, height, or something like that. Sometimes the maps can get a little hard to make sense of. Oh no, your Discord's stuck updating? No. You're missing out on all the roughness variation. Ovi, been working on this. Would love some feedback on the lighting, composition, and anything you can think of. Feel like it has a lot of potential, inspired by The Revenant. Oh, it's a dope movie, man. Also, the mannequin is for scale reference. Nice. Oh man, the snow's feeling pretty good here. Don't be afraid to use either displacement or other snow meshes to break up the edge here, like where it's meeting the rock, just to lock in that fidelity. And also with the snow that's on the normal direction, if you can tighten that up a little bit, you're gonna have a sharper like break between when it's snow and when it's rock, and you're gonna get a better overall presentation when it comes to like how snow is resting on the rock. I hope that makes sense. If I do this, so over here is probably the weaker part of the scene. Like I can recognize that, okay, it's either close to rock or in kind of like the beginning of a cave. There's the edge here, but over on this side, I don't know what this is here. There's no trees close by, which is feels a little odd. I'm gonna assume, so this is a boat, right? So I'm gonna assume that this is water, and the water is coming up to the snow edge. It's very rare to have this type of transition naturally, where it's just snow and then it dips into into water. Maybe a puddle, yeah, but so think about the transition between these two pieces. So this would probably have to be a stream, right? And if it's a stream, you're going to have a lot more rocks, which are like this type, but are scattered along the bottom here. So you're going to have, let's see if I can, you're probably going to have rocks around this area, right? And then some maybe out here. And then because you have those rocks, you can use those rocks as well to kind of help break up this edge where the snow meets the rock. So these are just the little details that you can add to help like bring everything together. It's like this type of propping. This is what I would call like they're like stitching props. They're props that help stitch large surfaces together, usually in situations where you have like a wall meeting the ground or like large rock formations meeting the ground. There's a hard edge there, right? And a lot of the times you can use grass to mask that, but it can be a combination of grass, extra geometry to break up the snow edge to just kind of give it that fidelity that you're expecting to see where they meet. Little rocks with snow on top of them is really going to help bring this forward more and kind of tie everything together. And it'll let me know that this is like some type of stream, right? Like, oh, it's going deeper. Because right now it's pretty hard to tell what's over here. I don't know what that is. I'm just assuming it's water because that's a boat. All right, we got Nicholas Making, what is this? Photogrammetry. Nice. Yeah, if there's height variation in those trees in this last one, that would be like a little bit more of these lower ones. And if there's depth between them so that they're like, they break up a bit more. So, okay, so we got this photogrammetry asset that you'd scanned in. Feedback on the maps to help improve would be great. Honestly, I think scan-wise, it looks fine. Yeah, I think scan-wise, for the most part, it looks fine. There's not too much lighting information in the albedo, which is usually where a lot of the scan issues come in, at least from what I've noticed. I would probably take another look at your roughness. But remember, this surface is pretty, it's got a bit of a tooth to it, right? It's pretty textured. So a detail normal of just this surface up close, tiled relatively high, 5-6 times, and just see what the surface looks like with that on top of it, because it'll be over the entire thing, right? If you wanted to get really fancy, I guess you could use like the contrast. So like you can see how it's lighter here in the albedo, but then darker here and lighter here. You could use that as a mask to change the strength of the detail normal. That's just that extra layer of detail that's going to really kind of bring it home. But I mean, these are pretty gray usually, so I mean, it looks pretty good to me for a scan as well. I'd be curious to see what the wireframe looks like, just because the details here, like this is pretty flat, and if there's a lot of geometry in there, I would say you got to kill a lot of that off, because you don't need it. You don't need it to sell a flat surface, you know. All right, where are we at here? Gabshaga? I'm probably saying that wrong. I'd appreciate some feedback if you could give me on the textures and the presentation. This thing look cool. Gabs? I got you, Gabs. Only Gabs, please. Please. Those look pretty cool. There's some interesting color information going on in here. I kind of like that. Let's see what this looks like here. Is my internet slow today? What's going on? So I feel like the rotation of this video feels really slow or choppy. Like maybe it needs more frame rate. You posted this 2 months ago. I would suggest uploading this video to ArtStation. That way it'll just loop for you. Especially the Pro, I think you can actually upload a 4K turntable if you wanted. Overall, design-wise, it's pretty cool. The ground feels a little busy when like you really want to be focusing on this. Like I like the rock pieces being added to that, and I like the addition of your .com in here. What's going on? Update 505 for Discord. Huh, it's finished. The accent. I like the accent colors. You're talking about these here. Classic crown thing going on here. And those are some serious rims. Detail here is pretty insane. I don't even want to know how like high poly that is. It's probably kind of crazy. Oh boy. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so there's some geometry in here that's not really needed, like the chain pattern here, or this pattern on the glass. That could just be alpha. Adel, how you doing? Is it Adel? Hi. 05822. Was it your birthday recently? I don't know. 058. This doesn't look like it's for games, I guess, is what I'm seeing, just because of the poly count being as high as it is. This edge here is quite sharp. I would bevel that. I think what else I could mention on here. I'm not getting enough roughness difference. Reference. I'm merging them now, guys. I'm merging them. Where I want to see the rubber versus the paint versus the metal. It's a telephone code in my native village. Oh, I see. Cool. And then these lights don't reference. You like that? You like that, Barry? It's too late, man. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. The lights feel odd. Like these pieces are really thick while this is really thin by comparison. And then this doesn't really feel like glass. It feels more like a sphere, right? So it's coming forward quite intensely. I think my favorite part of this asset is right here, because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the materials and the roughness, in the color, the attention to detail. See, like this stepping plate thing should look more stepped on, if that makes sense. Like some wear from the area that you're actually stepping on. Yeah. This piping stuff here feels a little funny. This text right here feels really weird to me. So with how old this is, like this is post-apocalyptic, right? This font on here is going to be really kind of pushed back. Exile, how you doing? It's good to see you. Good evening to you. Hi, Sebastian. How you doing? So just keep that in mind. Aging of the surfaces, what happens to rubber as it kind of wears down, but you're still seeing the text. Like this, the rubber on this tire is quite thick still. You could ask questions. I'm just going through Discord critiques with you guys. Let's see what else is going on here. This is pretty cool though. Dude, this song is, what's going on with this song? I don't know, man. We're just gonna shuffle this. Let's see if this is a good radio. Starting off strong. Okay. Yeah. I think I've said enough on this. Is that fabric back there? Really getting that fabric to feel different from the metal is important to me, I think. I think it's important in general just for the material separation. Nice, Excel. Okay. We got this one. It's got some mud going on. Mud actually looks like it's lifted here, which is really strange. Looks like it here as well. Looks okay here. So what I want to say is when you're making a material, I mean, I'm no material artist, right? But when you're making a material, I would say a good material is going to have at least 3 elements, right? So in your case, you've got mud and water. You need a third thing, which is like either footprints, like sticks, rocks. I mean, I can see little pebbles maybe in there, but they're just not coming out from the mud. And then thinking about physically how the surfaces are, right? That's important. And it's things like how saturated and how dark the mud gets, where it's wet, most wet, and where it's a little bit less wet. So like in these areas, in the higher points that aren't necessarily in the puddle range, they're not going to be as wet as the rest, right? And that changes the color and that changes your saturation and your value. So keep that in mind. The presentation on these spheres, when you do a sphere presentation, you definitely need to do the displacement, or else you're going to start to get illusion issues where, like, for example, the mud feels like it's at the highest point here. And for me, I think it is. The mud looks like it's lifting, or it's the highest point in the normal or height map. So if you can get some displacement happening on these, that's going to help you. Huh. Let's see what else we got going on here. I'm making sure I'm making you guys changing your role as well. You guys are committing the ultimate by posting your work. It's like sticking your neck out, right? I know how it feels putting your work out there. All right. We got a gun. We know how good I am at guns. So I'd love some feedback on this. Laziza Tick, it's you. More crits, Olamed, yeah. What a productive community. Dude, you guys are kicking this stuff out like crazy. I'm loving it. So this is definitely some Ghost Recon fan stuff going on here. Look, you even got your little name on there. So I love the scene presentation. It might be a little too straight where the brick is going straight like this and then the pallets are straight. Is it pallets stacked on pallets? And then the angle of the camera angle of the gun, or like aiming at the gun, looks pretty good. I think is there another angle of this? There's not. So it looks like it's balancing on a little bag here as well, a little satchel. If that satchel was to the side and then you let the gun tilt forward, and so you get that nice angle and the light is casting across it, you're going to get a much more interesting look, I think. Let me see if I can. Let's do this. I don't know if I can, how fast I can do this. Time is of the essence, you know. So if you've got your pallets like this, right, and then you have your gun. Let's say this is the gun, and then what? You've got your backpack. It's just going to be a block out, of course, because I don't have time to make this happen. So you've got your backpack here. You've got like a really small satchel thing going on right around here. And you have the gun balancing on it, right? I think if you let the gun like just, I'm going to just make this a little bit longer. If you made the gun more tilted like this, right? And then up and then resting on the backpack. And then more forward maybe. Of course, the backpack's not going to be clipping like that. But then you can get an angle like this, and you're going to get a much more interesting like light interaction with the surfaces. Let's see what else we got going on here. Edgeware, I mean, it's a pretty clean looking gun, and the variety in the surfaces could use a little bit more. You got tape down here, which is pretty cool. There's some roughness variation here. The scope feels a little different. I think if this was it is doing it. Maybe if this was a little lighter, or this part was a little lighter, just so you feel like there's different materials involved in the creation of this entire weapon, right? Because weapons today are quite modular in a sense where like you're putting pieces on and swapping pieces out and all that, especially in Ghost. Yeah, this doesn't really feel like rubber to me either. Needs to be pretty bright in the roughness in order to nail that. But overall, looks pretty solid. It's just those things that you could hit on a little stronger. Kirill. So this is your reference. You're still working on this scene, huh? You're like me, man. So you can see there's a little bit of a washed out look going on in the image. Let's grab this. I'm just gonna like that. Some of my keyboard stuff doesn't feel like it's happening. So it's getting pretty close, right? You can see your greens are quite saturated. Man, that's getting real close. Yeah, you're camera matching pretty well. Your lights in your scene are still a little bit warmer than here. These are pretty cold by comparison of yours. this chair in the reference is so like pivotal to the focal point of like telling a story right here. You kind of like the warmer lights. Yeah, just, I mean, if you're going for photo real, I think you're, if you present the roughness with it, or roughness. Oh man, see, now you guys got my brain going. What's up, Alex? Yeah, I think if you break away from it too much, that could be a problem. I'm still waiting on your ceiling to kind of have the detail that I'm seeing in here with the, it's basically the pattern is visible. It's a pretty unique scene, right? Yeah, the pattern is visible because the paint is not happening throughout. And I can see it's there, but it's just not, your paint's not being removed where you expect it to be removed. There's, I mean, the details are, they're getting close. The metal here looks a little fake right now. And you can see it's not too reflective in this sense. But a lot of it is really coming down to just color matching if you want to try and hit that point. So if I, what is it here? If I do that, you can see you're going to want to wash it out a bit. Look at that. The difference between these two is scary close. Scary close. Like, that's kind of crazy. The fact that you have all that hair down there too, that's rad, man. But yeah. I mean, this is pretty close to done in my opinion. I would try and get some of the larger shapes that are in here. And then do you have like the wires? So you don't have the wires yet, and the larger shapes that kind of break the wall to the counter or this like little ledge thing. You need that information, and you're golden, I think. Anyways, super cool. It's coming out really, really well. It's coming out super nice. Man, that's crazy. Nice. Nicely done so far. I think I would bring this pillar closer to the camera, just so you get more depth. All right. Mikkel, finished project from last year. Would love some feedback. All right, let's check this out. Okay, I just paused it real quick here. Unpause. Just gonna try and just take it in for a bit. Ooh, dude, this is I like that. Really like understanding or showing the inner workings of how something's put together. It's always really interesting. Oh man, this song is real good. So how much detail is happening around these openings is really kind of, it's lacking. So you remember Augustus from the stream yesterday. He's essentially solved this edge with decals and whatnot. Let's see if I can simulate kind of how the geometry works. Let's see here. Just gonna, how would I do this? Oh no. Okay, wait, I gotta kill this. Oh no, it's still happening. That was Epic Pen. Okay, so if we got, oh geez, if you got a if you got a hole, right, an opening, right? let's say this is the hole that's in the ceiling here. Let's just do some variety in shapes. Oh no. I'm like, what have I done? Okay, so you've got this opening. It's like, how do you... I'm not letting go of stuff sometimes. How do you make that edge not so simple? Right? Oh, it's gonna bug me. I need to... There we go. And a lot of the times it's like you essentially take these edges that are the more extreme, and then you can bevel them, right? The other thing you could do is if you duplicate this and then hide the other piece, but then keep this here, you could do something like, let me see if I can even, no, you can't. Okay. If we bevel this, but then make it, where is that at? Shape? No. Sharp. Oh, I can't do it. What? Well, essentially, I'm just going to cut it so that we can keep it going here. So essentially what I'm doing is creating a strip. Just do that. Invert, delete. Hang on here. So when you're looking at these loops, right? So now I've got this piece here. You could map that to some like damaged tileable surface or tileable material. And then you can, with that material, you can then like show this damaged material that you can vertex paint out, right? So you'll have to add a little bit of extra geometry so you don't just get a gradient. You can also use alpha cutout, but this is a great way to mask that edge because essentially the material will cover up the fact that there's a hard edge there. You'll usually have this piece as well will be like one smoothing group, so it's quite soft. So then you don't get the hard edge there, and then all the normals of the damaged material are kind of doing the work instead of the hard edge that was there. All right, that took a little longer than I thought it would to explain that, but yeah. The decals or the wall, however you're doing your wall break up here, looks pretty cool. Might get a little extreme in some cases, but it's not taking over, which is good. For how old this is, there seems to be a lack of like this grime strip here, or like this dripping or like dirtying from the pipe above it, especially where you have metal or any metal, anything is going to start to leak onto the wall with moisture and whatnot. It's like a rust is just going to kind of transfer into everything. I like the atmosphere that you have in here. This room is gold. So this actually is probably the cooler part of it, just because it has so much character to it. With the normal information you have on the glass, make sure to tile that higher. Maybe lower the strength so it's not really popping as much. Explaining what's happening on this back wall a little better I think would help me understand what we're looking at. Now this opening, is that opening to like the power but no chords? Oh man. Oh man, you're right. You're right, Oreo. That's a good one to point out. So there's this piece here which you should note is really close to the edge. So like bringing that further in so that it has like space up for its own would be important. What's going on here? Oh, reference. All right. Dang. Okay. Yeah, see, I think with this information here, this needs to be lighter in order to get this area to pop. Let me see if we can. So here's your reference. And then is this scene. Photoshop. Let's just gonna do, oops. Gonna delete that part, and we're gonna just kind of look at the back wall here. So you can see the color of the back wall. I mean, this photo is kind of rough, right? Like, looks like they boosted it quite a bit. This looks pretty good. This spot here. I think it's mainly the wall and just kind of understanding, like, knowing that this is a different surface from this one, right? And then this is different from this. You're getting that, right? So you can see it's smoother here than it is on this. This should be different from this one. I think this should also be a little bit smoother compared to the back wall. And you can see in here, it might be the exposure, but in here, this is actually a little bit more light and desaturated. I wonder if, see. I mean, it's a little closer, but at the same time, like, this wall doesn't have the range that you're expecting. Let me see if I can get the, but yeah, it's just it's more about explaining like why, like how the back wall is, like how it's constructed, and trying to get that to be a little bit closer to the reference. Yeah. Pretty cool though. It's a really interesting scene. And your assets in the scene, like the props, look really good. Like these look nice. This looks really nice. There's some opportunities for like under shadows and stuff here that you're missing out on. It's like contact shadows, I guess. You've been there on a tour? That's hilarious. It's really cool. This is Al Capone's space, huh? Wow. That's cool. But I should move on to the next one. A cool scene. You learned contact shadows recently? Yeah, contact shadows would help immensely. Down here, this area, that looks pretty good. It's like near photoreal stuff going on. All right, let's, we got Kronos trying to get this finished up. Would love some input on the environment and lighting. I've hit a real wall here. So, okay. Your fire is going nuclear, like it's super bright, right? These are really bright. Thinking about what you want the viewer to focus on. I think it's here, right? You want them to look here. The other thing is the scale. Everything feels a little squished. Stuff scaled really strangely. It's hard to read the scene. There's a lot to point out here. Let's see if we can. We'll hit the high notes. But like, so first of all, the mountain range and the mountain range in the back here. Looking at those shapes and understanding like how they actually how they form in the real world in the distance. This is pretty extreme in how it's shaped, right? This is pretty alien, but it looks cool. You're definitely putting a lot of stuff together all at the same time. So look at your references really closely for the things even when you're making a scene up, there's reference, right? So like you've got this guy here, the width of the door, the size of the trailer, how deep the trailer goes. Think about if you were to open that door and you had to go through it, right? And then you're inside. Like what can be inside if it's that thin? And it might look really thin because of the angle, so I'm not sure. But my gut reaction or my gut instinct is that it's really thin. It's like half or maybe even a third of what it should be depth wise. The chairs look really thin and tall, whereas like you want those to be pretty relaxed and like easy to sit in. I would suggest maybe making the metal parts darker or look like painted metal, whereas the rest of this needs to be, if it's thin like this, I would imagine this is a softer material, so it needs to be more relaxed. But really, when it comes down to it with your props, I think it's more about scale and understanding like the dimensions of what you're building and making sure it doesn't look too like elongated or too flat or too small by comparison to the other assets around it. So it's a lot of understanding what you're building and really showing that you know like how big a chair is to its table, or like how big a tire is next to a car. And then if that tire is taken off the car and put next to a chair, that it doesn't feel like there are two different scale issues going on there. They look like they're from the same world. The other thing is just really the composition. It's really difficult to understand what you're looking at. Like, for example, this is your high point, right? So you might want in your distance, you might want that to be the high point, and then the mountains go back. And so maybe it does something like this, right? So then this is a focal point, and the mountains are just kind of a backdrop. The fire is super bright, so it makes it really difficult to focus on this area. So you end up looking here. Yeah. The other thing I guess I would say is the grass is really strangely colored by comparison to the terrain. It's make sure that your terrain is unifying with the grass and the grass is unifying with the terrain, right? So they need to be looking like they're coming from the same. Like if you made this unlit and you gave me a picture of it without any lighting information, I bet your ground is super dark by comparison of your grass, and it's bringing your ground value up and your grass value probably down a little bit. Yeah, so think about balancing your albedo so that everything is kind of roughly in the same range value-wise. You don't want it to get too crazy. Because right now these are pretty imbalanced of each other. But yeah, and compositionally, it's too hard to figure out what to look at with what we're looking at right now. So if you wanted, like, you said you've hit a wall, I would figure out what you want to focus on and reprop from that. Right? And then everything else should be secondary or tertiary to that piece. So if it's this, then the mountains need to like probably go down quite a bit, at least where they meet this edge here. That way this is being the focal point. This is the silhouette. This is the asset in your face that you're going to look at. This stuff is secondary, and it's more of like a detail of telling a story around the main asset, right? The mountains are tertiary, and this one I would probably make these like not so bright and maybe even like a third the thickness, so they're not really popping out that much. They can still be there, but you want to tone those down quite a bit. All right, hopefully that gave you a bunch of ammunition. You did a paint over of that in the critiques channel? Dude, nice. Nice, Muck. Oh man, the source. Here's another atmosphere I made for the previous environment. Let's check this out. And I would like to know how to improve to meet industry benchmark. Dude. That's pretty cool, man. I mean, I don't know if you need this image here. This kind of takes away from what we're seeing in this shot. This kind of looks like some crisis type stuff. So these are glowing, right? And there's such a focal point of what we're looking at. I think if you were to do a full moon type of cold night with like low ground fog, and these are really the focal point, and you can see it through the ice and the snow, that's gonna look freaking dope. This is really interesting with like ferns with snow on them and stuff. See, I don't think you need this shot either. It's interesting, but I don't think you need that. It's frosty, but it's going to melt your computer. That's a spicy meatball. I think this shot's pretty powerful, though. Again, with the composition, it's about getting away from that branch for this guy here. But yeah, I think a nighttime shot. But like, you know, a bright moon. This cold. I wouldn't be surprised if I zoomed in and that was actually the character in Crisis, you know? I don't know. It looks cool. I don't have too much to say on this because a lot of the stuff holds from what I was saying before compositionally. But I think if you really want this glowing to stick, the best glowing is at night, you know? I don't think you need the doff that strong either if you want a shot where you're doffing out. You can see the spacing here is also pretty good, but here it's now you're having the problem here that you were over here, but it's actually touching. Like you want to maybe push those trees to the side. Yeah, you have a lot of images that I don't think you need in here. And it still looks good. You have it snowing too. See, these shots are like, they're really fast. The camera accelerates, doff shifts really quickly, then all of a sudden the camera stops. It's very strange camera movements that you're doing. Well, that looks like a drone. What is going on here? Is this me? There's like compression stuff going on in the video. Oh man, don't do this. That's really hard on the eyes. Unless the cameras move really slow. But yeah. As a still shot, this is pretty strong. Minus this thing here. And to make it stronger, I would say nighttime. All right, what are we looking at here? Probably can't post work in progress, but I'm stuck in the design. You can totally post work in progress. I hope you're in chat. It's an 80s sci-fi scene design. So far, I have mixed feedback. Hands and shin guards are to be done. I mean, it doesn't look too bad to me. I think you know, like obviously, I think in the boot area, it's pretty boxy, right? Hands and shin guards are to be done. It feels like the boots haven't really changed enough from their original blockout piece. I am getting the retro vibe here. I am also, sadly, I will be very blunt about this, but I'm getting a very generic vibe from the design, right? And I think that might be why you're getting a mixed response, is it's not unique enough or executed in a way where you're like, dang, this is really, like design-wise, it's really intriguing. Like this back piece here, that's quite intriguing. Like these lines here, like if you look at, what is it? What is the game? What is the game called with the game with the guy and the bolt cutter shooting thing? It's a scary game. Why is my brain... Chat's going to answer it in like immediately. I'm excited. Dead Space, thank you. Yes. You guys are awesome. Okay, so in Dead Space, there's a lot of details that you see resonating throughout the design, not only of the character, but the spaceship itself, right? So you have a lot of details that you could be propagating throughout, like this. You have these straps here, right? Follow a design very similar to this and just propagate that type of design throughout the suit. The way the helmet is shaped and the shape language that you have going on in the helmet, bring those into the boots. Bring those into the shoes. Bring them into the shin guards, right? I think once you start to unify it in that sense, I think you're gonna you're going to have a stronger piece. I'm also not a character artist, so I'm not sure on proportions and whatnot. I would really exaggerate shapes as well. Like right now you've got, we'll just bring this into Photoshop because, you know, speed. So you've got this shape here, right? What if that shape was out here and then came down instead? I mean, that might be a little extreme, but I think you get the point. Like just trying to make the detail, the silhouette more intriguing. It's kind of like your helmet. You have these side pieces, right? I'm curious where this guy's face is because that panel feels like it might be really close to the face, right? So think about, like, if you can, just place a face inside or a head and just see and make sure that it looks like there's enough room. I mean, it could be a no nose type of humanoid, right? Delete if it can't be reviewed. I got you, man. There is a head. There's a head in there? Dude. All right. All right. We're good then. It's just, yeah, make sure to, like, I guess down here, the wrinkles in the pants also start to break down a little bit as to, like, where they're wrinkling. Use a 3D scan as a base mesh. Oh, yeah. Adele's posting stuff now. Anyways. It's interesting. It's just not, to me, it's not interesting enough. I think that's, as an environment artist, of course, that's not really a character artist at all. I feel like character art can be quite difficult because you have to be able to execute something, not only just a character, but it's the full package, right? It's the design, it's the overall, like, the silhouette is engaging, the design of how the clothing is, the armor, like, yeah, character art's difficult, man. I don't know how you character artists do it, but it's amazing. All right, Adele, you got this rock. Can you please review this? Textured with painter. I need to make a pine tree for my environment. Can you please share some light on this as well? I could kind of share some light on it. I mean, oh man, actually now when I think about it, that's a really big thing to unpack. I mean, sure, you're going to make the tree, the trunk, right? And then you have the branches. Honestly, what I would do if you're pretty new to making trees, just look at the tree silhouette and understand where branches are at, how old or how young branches are, how the leaves or the pine needles rest on the branch. Probably the biggest advice I could give for you when it comes to branches as textures is to make sure that there's space alpha wise between the branches. That way, when you get further away from it, it doesn't mip down and they don't melt together. Because that's how you get those really solid trees that look really strange. Yeah, with this rock, I don't know what type of rock this is. And I don't know, like surface wise, it feels really simple. Like you're going to want a detail normal in there. That's like rock, at least the rock that you're trying to replicate. You're going to want, you're kind of doing it here, but some highlights on the edges to just kind of emphasize those details. And, I mean, I would say it's kind of hard to judge the rock from this view, right? You're going to want to put it in the scene and see it next to everything else. But rocks are not an easy thing, man. I think a lot of the times you see people are probably going off of scans these days when it comes to rocks. So keep that in mind. And that's totally okay to put scanned rocks in your scene. But yeah, understand how the rock got to where it is, what type of rock it is. And then what that type of rock detail-wise has on it that makes it that type of rock. Because rocks look a specific way because of the way they break down, right? The way they chip away and how they damage themselves to like turn into sand. You also posted an environment. It's this one here. This is a portion of my environment work in progress. Okay, so you're getting pretty far along in the asset itself. The Rock was a wrestler and then became an actor. That's pretty funny. Is it okay to use scans in your... That's a great question. We get that question actually a lot in this server and in the stream. So scans are totally okay to use in your portfolio. Something to keep in mind is you're building scenes, right? If you use a scanned asset that's not yours, but you either bought it or it was free, you can use that. Just make sure to say it in the description, and don't heavily rely on scanned assets. You can rely on them quite a bit. And I mean, if you have a scene that you're doing a steady on where you're just using scanned assets, you just say that in the side and then it's okay. But you can't then go, oh yeah, I know how to make this stuff, right? You have to be able to prove that as well inside of your portfolio. That's pretty key. Speaking about this scene, you've got a couple things going on. You've got some pillars, some walls, some fences, some assets, a building. Is that a giant pot, like giant pottery? And a little, like a table here, and a stool. Understanding what you're trying to build, like what is this like a? Are you trying to imitate something from like Rome? Is it like a specific time period? If it is, you got to gather all that reference and understand like everything there is about what you're trying to build here. That way, everything kind of just snaps together, right? You've taken everything here pretty far, like the building wise, and some of the little smaller assets you've taken pretty far as well. The terrain in the background, you could probably look at using. Is there a free terrain tool out these days? Because like I want to say world machine, but of course I don't think that is free, right? Is there a free option? Let's just wait on chat to respond to that. I don't think you guys, maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know. Gaia is another one that's pretty cool. It's like node-based terrain generation. Anyways. But the terrain in the back, I would solve that. I would figure out what you want your focal point to be, and then just start building around that. Reference taken from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So that's cool. That's cool. Make sure that when you... This is a butcher shop. Okay, so we need to see things that tell you it's a butcher shop, right? Those elements need to be present. If you're taking references from Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I would still highly suggest going and looking where those details are coming from and why. That way you can really understand what you're building. Because Assassin's Creed, I mean, maybe they took some liberties, right? So, and then shifted a little away from the reality of what they were making, which who knows? I have no idea. But yeah, look at all the details that are there. Like right now you're missing grass. There's some tiling stuff going on with the ground, which is pretty normal. Ooh, there's a link for rock sculpting. Adele, you can check that out. Tiling in the ground is not necessarily a problem because there tends to be a lot of blending of materials on the ground, right? To really make sure that can just like you'll have a path here. You'll have like a different type of rock maybe next to the building and then different type of grass here. And then remember that you're going to need to add grass planes and little grass blades and stuff like that. The way this is painted also, there's a lot of things going on that need some adjustment some love. But I mean, you got to start somewhere, and I think you're heading down the road. You're heading in the direction that you need to be heading. Be careful of taking reference from games, though, just because they're games when we should be looking at reality or references from reality at some point in time. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, and am I going off soon? What is that? No, I got 30 minutes. I got 30 minutes. You're currently working on the grass cards. Make sure there's enough, just like with the trees, make sure there's enough space in the alpha between the blades. It's okay to not have very many blades on the grass and then actually use a lot of geometry to make more grass, right? Because you're going to get a much more natural, like, look for that. Am I doing stream critiques? Yes. Yes, I am. Just make sure to post it in the stream critique channel. Two reference boards on PureRef, one for benchmarking and one for actual reference. Yeah. Trying to see if you guys said anything else. You don't know how to implement the material blending in UE4? Oh, there's tons of videos on that. I actually don't know right now. I'll be diving into Unreal 4 at some point in the near future, and I don't know how to do that either. I've been in games for 13 years, and I don't know. But this is an industry of learning. You're always going to be learning stuff, so it's just got to look it up. You'll find it on YouTube, ask in the Discord. I'm sure there's resources. Like if you go to the where is it at? TC, the Empire Command, there might be something in there for you in the Unreal section. All right, let's see what's up next here. Thanks for posting, by the way. Super cool. Is it Kenden or Keaton? Oh, this looks pretty cool. Oh yeah, we got more critiques coming. You guys are keeping me busy. So this looks pretty awesome. As a work in progress, looking for some feedback on how the lighting looks so far and how the materials are holding up. Still need to add some big main pieces for the scene, like the altar holding the ceremony dagger or knife for offerings in the middle of the room, and more pieces for offerings near the statue. Right. Let's see here. Let's look at the overall. I mean, we've got some blue eyes, right? Everything's very warm. And the blue eyes are pretty cool. I think if the blue was like hitting around the arch here as well, that would be really interesting. So maybe if the statues were just a little further back and then they just kind of highlight blue along the edge here. When you're asking about materials holding up, that's an interesting question because I think, hey, Adel, no problem, man. I hope I'm saying your username right. You're learning everything from scratch. You're doing great, man. Keep it up. That's how we all began, from scratch. So it's an interesting comment on like, you're curious on how the materials are holding up. The question I guess I have for you is what are the materials, right? So like the materials hold up to something, right? So if you've got something like, is this supposed to be marble or is this metal? Now, if you're not sure, or if I'm not sure, then something isn't matching, right? And I think if you can get to a point where you can look at marble and go, okay, I know how to make this, and you build the material and then it looks like marble the way it's reacting to the lighting and the pattern in the material, the normal map, and so on and so forth, you're going to get materials that just hold up on their own. That's the nice part about physically based materials. Man, having to paint specular color in order to try and fake metal, where now you can just move a slider up and make it metal. I don't know how many hours were wasted making something look like metal. So, I think with the pillars here, the way they end is very strange to me, and I kind of feel like they should end more up here. Like, this is a great opportunity to have some type of detail right here. You don't have to, but it just feels strange that they end so abruptly. It feels like there's a cap missing from it, you know? It's a volcanic rock material for those pieces. The lighting color has affected it a lot. Yeah, lighting does crazy stuff, right? So the way that this statue is, like, this statue with how the lighting is not nearly as important as the statues on the side. And I think you need to remember that when you're looking at this. Like, clearly this is the focal point, right? So, and I think making, either maybe making the fires lower and having the sides maybe not so like bright and everything is really looking here. Maybe a huge fire behind him so that it's just like this silhouette more so could be really interesting. Getting that blue a little bit more in the scene could be really nice. I think the material you're talking about is like an obsidian, like a black obsidian type of rock. Overall, I mean, the scene's looking pretty interesting. It just feels like it's missing a lot of things where, like, while there's a lot of propping around here, it's still very empty. Like, if I take these out and the candles and the shield and the sword, there's literally no propping on the ground, right? So, like, just go nuts with it. Like, where there's candles, take these runes, maybe even like wipe these runes out. Maybe you don't need those runes there. So there's a lot of stuff asking for your attention, right? Maybe a lot of this stuff on the side is illuminated by tons of candles. Look at like how churches do stuff, especially in like the really old looking, like when I mean, even if you're looking at games, when you look at games and you're like, okay, well, this is a church in Diablo. All the details and like their cinematics and stuff, like look at all the side information that's happening leading up to the front, right? And really just kind of pack it in with all those details that you're looking for. Like, I don't know why there's a shield here and a sword. I guess these are offerings, right? So why aren't they over here? There should be a ton of candles around here, right? It looks like the ceiling's got an arch to it. I would really put a top on this. I think that would do wonders. Are the entities personal items that have gathered? There's war, death, conquest, famine. Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. On the side here as well. See, that's really hard to tell. I mean, I see it from here. And now that I see that there's a mask here, if you didn't explain it, I'm still seeing like, oh, okay, there's stuff is being told here, you know? There's a story going on. That's a difficult one to sell. I mean, I would almost put the mask on the statue, put the sword and the shield in on the statue. You know, like actually have them representing their personal items. Putting the glowing symbols on the floor, that could be pretty interesting. Whatever you do with the glowing symbols, see, this is great with all the candles here. Whatever you do with the glowing symbols, right now there's so many things fighting for attention, and the area with the least amount of attention grabbing information is right here, other than it's centered, right? So keep that in mind. And then like this ground is pretty open. Maybe a rug here, like a red tapestry type like pattern that goes across the ground. But yeah. Also, don't be afraid to space these out more. Like maybe there's more space between the pillars to the arch. So then the length of the space actually maybe almost doubles, right? So there's just a little bit more breathing room. That'll actually give you space to place either tables or little like sconces or like things that where stuff can be piled up on. But yeah, I think I gave you a ton to go off of. So I'm gonna jump to the next one here. Muck. What is going on here? What is this madness? So first of all, black and white. That's pretty cool, man. Okay, so hey, you're nearing the stream, so I'd like to know if this semi-abandoned project of mine is worth continuing on. Idea is to make it more interesting or compelling. I mean, it kind of looks like there's some Art Deco stuff going on with this type of detail here. I mean, it's a cool scene. This shot is really interesting. This bottom one's really cool. I feel like there needs to be stuff on the side here, but I think this is totally worth. This is totally worth it. I mean, you want to get crazy? You want to make it insane? Are you ready? Are you ready for the insane? So you could put the camera here, looking more up. You do 3 chandeliers that are crazy, like, you know, crazy elaborate. You'd like to go off-road? Oh, we're about to go off-road. Okay, so imagine everyone's sitting here, right? They're all just chilling. They're having this like amazing, what is this? It's a restaurant, right? So, okay, maybe everyone's having breakfast. It's super nice. You got cups and stuff here. Getting their coffee. Everyone's having their nice little breakfast. Lots of people. Someone in the middle starts screaming, right? They fall to the ground. And then they like, you can see the ground lifting around them. And then they like arch back. And as they arch back, this shockwave, people are starting to freak out, right? They're like backing away. Someone goes forward to help them. And then they arch back and they just ignite into fire. Like they just explode and they're on fire. And then they float maybe about this high. I'm scared. So you got a character floating about this high, right? And while they're like just bursting with energy, you can take these lights, you can bend them to the side because they're just getting constant force. All of the furniture that was close by can be thrown to the sides and shattered or like pushed to the sides. And then the chandelier that was above them, you can literally make it look like it fell but onto the ceiling. So like it's just smashed to the ceiling and can't fall. So think about all of those details and what that does for the scene. Just crazy, you know? You're insane. I don't know. Maybe I was watching too much playthroughs of Control, but I think that would be pretty sick. Just that'll turn it upside down. You want to like go off road? That's off road, man. And like think about this: if you can't afford to make characters, it is from Finland. If you can't afford to make characters, or it's difficult for you to make characters, make silhouettes of characters. So when your character exploded, you just have the shapes of people thrown to the wall, vaporized into the surface. Like there's so much story there. Anywho, I think the scene's totally worth, to get back to reality, I think the scene's totally worth building or continuing. There's so much here going on already, and it's just it's a matter of telling a story, whether it's crazy like what I just said, or, you know, something else. Just change that song. It's a little intense. Let's, does that help you, Muck? Do you just think they could be floating here, just bursting with energy and blah? You lit my fire a bit. Awesome. Awesome. I'm sure that's happened in a movie. It has to have. It's pretty iconic. There's a game, Parasite Eve, it happened in on the stage. A woman was like singing opera, and then she just decided, oh, I'm just going to start taking people's mitochondria in their blood, in their bodies, and I'm just going to turn those up. And just people in the crowd are just bursting into flames. It's a pretty cool game. Okay, let's we're going to move on. We're going to look at Forbidden Quack. Quick question, what's up, Muck? I'm going to open these up while I'm taking your question. Dude, Parasite Eve is dope. It's one of my favorite games from my childhood. Opinion on keeping it black and white. It depends on how much it helps your story. Because black and white, it looks pretty cool. But it's really about how much it's telling the story that you're going to put into the scene. Right? Man, imagine if the character wasn't there, but there's still like the silhouettes on the wall, and you can tell that a giant explosion happened. It's pretty interesting. So what is this? What is this? Hey, can I get some critiques on this scene I'm doing? This looks like a war room. Dude, Parasite Eve's amazing. I would love a remake of that. Not a remaster, a remake. Like a full-on... Oh, man. Whew. Chills. Yeah, so this is definitely a war room. That table. So for a war room, the table's quite dark, like lighting wise, right? They need to see what they're planning, and I would assume it would probably be like, based off the size of this table, it's probably gonna need to be like 1 or 2 chandeliers, maybe 2. I mean, this all looks pretty cool. There's a door over there. All right. There's get a little table here. Some books. I mean, honestly, I think it's lighting. Your lighting right now is the thing that's holding back the scene. The assets don't... I can't tell if the assets are fully complete, mainly because the lighting isn't really telling me what's going on. You know what I mean? With this table, I guess there's a lack of rugs or like patterns that happen in places. So I'm kind of wondering where that's at. With windows like this, did they have curtains? Did they do drapery around these areas? You can't fight in there. But it's a war room. You're fighting everywhere. No. Yeah, I think focusing on like lighting to really kind of push the overall scene. Because, I mean, the scene looks pretty intriguing. This one's actually kind of tough. I mean, there's not a lot going on your ceiling. Your ceiling's quite dark, right? This trim pattern here is pretty nice. I would think maybe about like lowering the contrast on the walls. Maybe getting some rugs in here, either by the bookcases or under the seats. The top is supposed to be windows. What? Oh, up here? Wait, what do you mean? Dude, the bane of 3D art is everywhere, the ceiling, right? Yeah. Yeah, I see these little openings here, and then these. It feels like they're. I mean, there's no banners anywhere hanging, you know, to like tell you like what group this is, like what faction. I guess there's these, right? Yeah, you want that light angle. Basically, what you're doing here, you want that to be hitting the table here. But I still think you're gonna need some chandeliers, and these like, what are these called? These giant candle holders. Just placing them everywhere. You like decorating ceilings? That's amazing. That's a good artist skill to have. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's lighting. Candelabra? Huh. All right. Yeah, I feel like there needs to be more of those around, and then maybe like a chandelier with candles on it. Just to, because you want the focal point to be the war room's war table, right? Followed by this board. Once you have that, I would probably suggest looking at how much your metal material is kind of contrasting with your wood material. Make sure the roughness between them is working well together. And I guess don't be afraid to stack some books in other areas, because there's a lot of books in here. But this area is quite clean, even though it's the war rooms, the war table. And this shot, to me, seems like the most intriguing. See here. Yeah. All right, Exile. You up? If there's some time left, destroy it. All right. Oh, Nova. Yeah, let's go back to this real quick. Nova's spot on with this one. Nice to see your input as well, dude. You have a lot of straight lines where large objects, walls meet grounds that could use some medium shapes to break it up. Yes. So this edge here, it's kind of like why I was thinking you need rugs and stuff. It's just like how you have these edges, long straight edges that they just need the breakup. And it's the same here, especially here. There's a sharp edge here. Let me just do this here. I'll lower this myself. But, I mean, the scene's coming along. It is very empty right now. Pay attention to the scale on stuff, because, like, these side beam things here, it's a perfect opportunity to, like, double their depth, right? Just to get that type of breakup that you're seeing there. The edge here is really straight. If you bevel this and then just kind of bend or tilt some of those, that would be pretty cool. Thinking about how to break up these walls more. Lighting wise, I mean, I guess are you not baking your lighting right now? Because lighting here looks pretty interesting, but like you can see where this pillar is, and how the shadow, like the back wall, is being lit by the behind the pillar. So I think that would fix if you had like a baked light map. So if these are removable, I guess maybe that's causing it to look like that. These edges right here, this rounding is quite low poly. You're going to get rid of these lights? I mean, it's not a bad thing. You could put one here. I would like to know where this is, or like what this place is, right? Because I don't know what this is. Is it a parking garage? Is it like, is it area you pass through? Yeah, it's missing a lot of props where to help explain what you're looking at or what the space is. Don't be afraid to bevel as well. It's an industrial corridor. An industrial corridor of what type of industry? Because like that, when you say industrial corridor, I think I want to see props that tell me what's the company, what floor are we on? Is this like sector B? Is this P1, right? What are they transporting through these industrial corridors? Do they store stuff over here? Is this really a dead end? Like, if this is a dead end, they must be parking stuff here, right? So there's lots of stuff that you can add in here to just kind of like really push that look. But yeah, could use some nice focal points and a hero object. Dude, a hero object, yeah. I mean, if you don't want anyone to go down this way, this is creepy, right? Because you don't know where that's going. If it got real dark over here, creepy. You're like, I don't know. Especially if you like start telling a story like blood and then it's dragged into the darkness. So it gets a little creepy. You're planning. Oh, hang on. You're planning to crash a forklift into this wall? That's pretty cool. But yeah, ask yourself what the space is, right? A crash forklift is a great hero object. And I mean, in that case, you almost don't even need this area, right? You just be looking over here. I actually really like this side. It needs that hero prop. It needs like the... Stop making me yawn. So sorry, Zonk. Left wall between the lamps. Oh, right here. So just like, wow. So like, what's the reasoning though? Why did it crash through there? Like you want story, right? Is this like the industrial hallways under like a casino and they're going to like break in to get the goods, right? But yeah, I think right now the strongest thing about this scene is actually your ceilings look really good. There's a lot of infrastructure thought out. The lights look really nice with the way they're casting here. The barrel back there looks a little low. Is that lodding? Do you have lods going? That kind of looks like it's lodding down. It is. See the edge count there? So you're going to want to push your lod distance on that because it's higher here. Yeah, making these bigger, adding some props on the sides here, stuff that's like these barrels, add a ton of them. Why not? Just fill the space up. Tell me where this door goes. Put a sign here. Yeah, there's just a lot of what is down there? Is that an exit sign? UA4, one topic for the future, lodding and lod distances. Oh, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Assets need lods. But how do you control when it lods? And like, when's a good time to lod? It's an interesting scene though. It needs some focal points. Oh, I like these details down here. It needs a focal point, maybe like a hero prop, like you're saying, and it needs like a news screen. Here's a news screen. What? You're dropping in chat? Where are you dropping that? Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, see, this is more storytelling, but it's missing stuff still. We're gonna look at some other scenes here. We don't have very much time. Okay, I'm going to stop taking critiques, and I'm just going to get through who's in here. But, yeah, it's just empty right now. It needs some storytelling. Got to watch out for those edges and more propping to keep it simple, I guess. All right, Angelo. Is that underwater watermelon? What's going on here? Is that the splitting of watermelon? Yeah, I mean, hopefully that was helpful, Exile. All right, since you've got some time, Here's a small diorama I made last month for a test. Couple evenings of work, somewhat strict poly count, hence the low poly bubbles. Any thoughts on how I could have improved it? Storytelling, lighting, texturing wise. Theme was picked by me. It was an underwater temple. All right, let's take a look here. Have you tried height fog? This sounds super weird. Height fog. You weren't present for the annual splitting of the watermelon? Height fog, but the color of the sand. So it's kind of like a disturbed sand ground. I guess you couldn't really like displace the sand because of the... Dude, what is going on here? To like displace the sand height. So like you have these lines that are higher than the rest. Dude, I love these barnacles. Oh, those are super cool. I think if there was, let me see here. I think I need to find that Blender file, but I was going to say like, if you lined these pillars up and then made this like a centerpiece that's much higher than the rest, and it was on like a platform, and then had all of these kind of lined up to it. You know what I mean? Like, let's see here. If I drew it from the top. I love the backdrop that you have here for the water. So if you were to like, so if this was the top view, right? And this is your, yeah, let's try this again. So if this was your, oh man, that's really small in the stream. So if this is your splitting watermelon thing here, right? And then you've got the base to it, the steps down. And then you had like another one that was maybe like this with some steps here. And then you had the pillars, or maybe not there. If you had the pillars like, oh dang, I think my brain wants it to be 3. If you had the pillars like this, right? And then another one here. So then you have steps, you have like a direction that everything's going in, right? So you can remember that these are steps, of course. Yeah, so there's a direction, there's like a formation to the design of it. And then think about the main edges and like where those barnacles could be going. So first you have maybe barnacles around the edge here like you do in here. Little barnacles and stuff here. Then you have like stuff building up in these areas, stuff building up in the steps. I mean, the other thing is you have the platform, right? And the sand right now, your sand is quite flat. If your sand kind of swept in and took over like, let's see if I can, took over like half of this. Like if this sand was higher and covered up most of that, and then the pillars kind of come out of the sand, that could be quite interesting. But yeah, you have like all these little barnacle things here, right? I love seeing those little details. Maybe it's a little bright. Let me see here. I'm starting to get slow. I can feel myself getting tired. I mean, your brightness is pretty good. You've got a nice bloom to everything as well. I mean, I think it looks pretty cool, man. I think outside of this area, I would probably go a little heavier with like all of the seaweed and the little creatures and stuff. And don't be afraid to like make a ton of barnacles in some spots. But I mean, this looks pretty good. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You don't have very much darkness in your textures. So if there was like an extra layer of a little bit of dark value that you could add in there, but I think it looks fine. I don't know, it's a little bit more nitpicking than anything because the overall execution looks really good to me. Looks like you were working within limitations. What's going on here? Yeah, displacing the sound would make it much more grounded. Definitely, Angelo. I have a question. How do we feel about reposting on ArtStation? I realized today that I forgot to revert a material experiment on my recent post, so my character screen has no specularity, or my character skin has no specularity. I kind of want to repost it so it has a chance to get eyes on it as it should have been. Just repost it. Whatever. How long ago did you post it? Don't worry about losing likes or any of that stuff. Post on your portfolio what you want to represent your art and your skill, right? If you posted something that was wrong, go and edit it and change the images. If that's not enough, like, I would just replace the image and call it good. But if you're worried about those quote unquote first impressions, I think reposting it, that's up to you. I wouldn't. I would just change the image and call it good. All right, we got Reese. Reese, you got a lot of detail here. Dude, I need to kill some of this stuff. There we go. Okay. So you don't really have any ambient. This scene's quite impressive, though, I will say. It's quite big. Dude, this is nice, too. Getting the crevices in there to be darker. They're probably too dark, but it's a really dark scene, though. Like, especially here. You can see that there's not really any ambient information filling the areas. So let's look at the levels here. Man, I love that. I can put this on my phone. My phone background. So if I turn this up, you can see there's no information in here. So there's nowhere for the color to go. Like I can't fix this basically. You see? So you want to make sure that you're yeah, there's a lot of detail in there. Definitely Angelo is saying could really use GI. So you're not really getting any bounce lighting information going on here. I guess this is probably real-time lighting. Would love some feedback if you have time on this recent project working in the university. Anything you can say about it would be a huge help. I mean, honestly, I think for the most part, your scene looks pretty good. A little bit extra geometry in the tires, so they're a little more round. This might be too red. But I think we can't really start addressing things until those areas that are really dark are kind of brightened up a bit more. I guess you could say that a lot of details in here feel low poly, right? So if I copy this image and paste it here and we zoom in, like this edge here, this is really sharp. I would bevel any edges like that. Like this would be beveled. I would bevel this if it's not. Bevel this one. Just get the lighting to wrap around the edge. But yeah, there's a ton of buildings here. You should be proud that you've created something this large. Is this a team project or? Yeah, this is just super dark. I mean, this is the focal point. So I'd maybe try and unify the buildings a little bit more. That way this just really pops out, right? Right now there's a lot of busyness going on in the buildings. And if you can tone those down in ways with just the color use or like the contrast difference between all of the values, you can really get this to be the focal point, and then you can run with that going forward. Yeah, the specular highlights on this sidewalk, like Nova's saying, super nice. Also, maybe if there was building height variation, I don't know. I think this is fine. It's just, It's just a lot of information to take in. Like there's scaffolding down there. I don't think you need scaffolding. If you're going to do scaffolding, I would actually put fabric on it. That way it just kind of like breaks the scene up instead of just adding a lot of noisy detail. Some cute birds would be nice. Yeah. There are only 5 or 6 assets actually. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, so there's a lot of sharing and it's just material swapping, right? I think actually this is my favorite shot of it. And you don't even need to build the whole scene. It's just making this look good. Make these windows look really nice because it looks like the framing in the windows is crushing down in a weird way. I'm not sure what's going on there. It's like the resolution or something. This stuff here. So watch out for weird mipping and resolution problems. And if this is all modular, you could totally model a space back there, or it looks like you might be parallaxing the room in the back. It's pretty cool. It needs lighting though, like bounce lighting. Dude, a bird on the table and some birds on the ground. Super nice detail for sure. Okay, this is the last one. Eurus. Dude, that guy got knocked out. This is definitely New York inspired. You can tell by the text here and the numbers and the arrows and stuff. And these ticket machines. Knocked out? I think he's dead. I don't know, man. No. So apologies for being a bit late. I think if there's time, I'd love to hear what you think of this work in progress environment I'm working on. Some context. It's a subway station a few years after the apocalypse, going for a really eerie lighting setting. The place is still being used by some people for surviving purposes, hence the active lights that are placed later. So the active lights are really filling the space. And I think if you can tone that down, oh, you're posting more screenshots as well. Oh yeah, this is definitely New York. Okay. I don't think the floor tiles need to be modeled up all that much. I think you're already breaking it up enough with the, oh, this is kind of cool. I think you're breaking it up enough already with the little small like propping that you're doing around the space. It definitely needs to be darker to get that eerie feel. Or like the train doesn't move anymore. Let's say the train doesn't go anywhere anymore and have some of these like shoved open or like forced open. Mad Raver, hey, no problem, dude. I hope it was helpful. I mean, this looks pretty cool. Depending on how long ago this guy died, I think that blood should probably be a little bit darker. Detail-wise, I think you're spacing it out quite well. It's just, yeah, it is really bright. It is really bright for going for the eerie vibe. I think if they don't light some of it, that would be really creepy. Like if this back area, if you just took this light out and just let this area just kind of go darker, that would be pretty creepy. And like letting this stuff here go into the darkness is really nice. So, and over here, just, you know, it kind of gets it's creepier that way. The tiles on the ceiling, I think you would probably want more of those to like, so you're working on the floor pieces being so detailed, right? But I want to see these tiles like offset and moved, and then some tiles on the ground. Right now I don't get that vibe. Is this a tile that's on the ground? I don't know. So what is this stream about? Yeah, this is we're doing feedback. This is the last one, then I got to get out of here. We've been going for about 2 hours and 12 minutes now, so it's getting spicy. But yeah, tonight it's feedback. On Monday, I don't know what it is. We'll see. We'll see. We might be in ZBrush messing around with some stuff. But it's all types of stuff. I'm a game developer of 13 years, and I'm just kind of like I'm a lead environment artist in AAA, and I run this community to help everyone, including myself, get better at 3D art for video games. Nothing is too beginner. Dude, you should join the Discord. You can put stuff in there in your in the work in progress channel. In the what's the channel's called? Critiques. I am in the Discord. Oh. Yeah, no one's too beginner. You're just getting started, that's all. You think of doing another one of these streams sometime? Yeah, definitely. I think we're gonna be changing up a lot of the stream pattern. So just be paying attention. If you're in the Discord, just be paying attention to the announcements, and you'll see what stream is happening when. I usually stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The stream, the Discord critiques aren't as often, but this week there was 2. We might turn them up a bit more because there's a lot of you guys, and you guys always, I think we learn a lot, including myself, just looking at things and going, oh, that's interesting. Oh, why'd you do this? How's that happening? So scene-wise, I think this is pretty solid. The ceiling could use a little character. I mean, it's kind of there already. Maybe if one of these lights was hanging off, just like tilted a little bit. And then killing some of the lights just to make it a little bit more eerie. No, this is actually the last one, man. Sorry to say. But yeah. Stay tuned because there's going to be more. There'll be more. Don't you worry. It's okay. Is it though? Is it? Do you need any more feedback for this? If you're still in chat. I don't know if you're still in chat. Yeah, we've been going at this for 2 hours. Look at the look at the browser tabs. I've closed a bunch of them too. Ugh. It's crazy. This store's pretty cool. I guess the grime is all right as well, and I like the chains, kind of giving you some story. This crack type stuff, this is always really difficult. I would say put this in the roughness and see how it looks instead of the normal. If you're going to put it in the normal instead of in the cracks, I would actually take the faces of the glass and give them a slightly different normal tilt, right? Some nice detail overall, though, in all of the... And you can tell you did your research. These are definitely, like the font, where these are placed, the patterns of the tiles on the wall, how the graffiti is, how the seat is. This is all super New York-y. But yeah, super nice. Okay, guys. I got to get out of here. I got to go.